Today's longboard and learn topic is going to be why you should consider adding a skate pole to your longboard training. And first of all, a disclaimer, this is not training advice or medical advice of any kind. This is just one person's opinion about a very subjective thing. It is pure anecdote. There is no data that I'm relying on to say any of these things that I'm going to say. But I think it's a topic that is near and dear to my heart, as I think there should be more people that are giving skate polling a try. And I'm trying to speak specifically to people who are already longboarding, because I think that's a population that is underutilizing the skate pole. I don't have any of these reasons numbered, and they're in no particular order, although they range from the important to the downright silly, and you can see what you think as I go along. First reason I would recommend a skate pole is for cross training. Usually with longboarding distance, you're not using your upper body very much at all, other than just for balance. Yes, you're moving your arms when you're kicking pretty hard, but it's not very intensive in terms of your upper body. So if you're somebody who tends towards being pretty lanky like me, it's nice to give your upper body a workout that it wouldn't otherwise get. And you're really using your whole body, your shoulders and arms, your latissimus dorsi, your abdominal muscles, your legs, your back. I think it's a very well-rounded cross-training activity to complement your pushing. It is a way to kind of share the load a little bit and spare some of the overuse on your muscles when you're pushing all the time. And hopefully it can prevent injury by spreading that load around a little bit. To me, the upper body workout just makes me feel more well-rounded as an athlete, compared to doing something that's just very leg intensive. And it keeps it a little bit more interesting and fun when you're not doing the same thing over and over again. That dovetails with the second reason I think it's worthwhile to consider the skate pole for longboarding, and that's for injury accommodation. So this is assuming you already have an injury. And in my opinion, anyone that does endurance sports is either injured or will get injured in the future. And certainly there's some, bizarre exceptions to that general rule. But anytime we do these repetitive activities, we're at risk of overuse injuries. Not to mention, you up the ante a lot by riding fast or moderately fast over very hard surfaces, and all it takes is a pebble or a pine cone or a sweet gum seed pod to launch you off your deck, and you're hitting the ground pretty hard. So we have multiple ways we can get injured, aside from the pure overuse of our muscles doing an endurance sport. And I find with the skate polling, I've been able to train through injuries that would otherwise sideline me with regular longboarding, particularly foot injuries. I've had broken toes, I've had metatarsal stress fractures, I've had midfoot sprains that seem to linger and take a long time to go away. And by not impacting the foot repetitively and just sort of adjusting your weight on the board and using the land pole, the skate pole, you can spread the load quite a bit and typically train through things that might keep you off your board otherwise. So I think accommodating injuries, like I said, dovetails with the cross training, and it's something to definitely think about. Then we get into some of the sillier uses of the skate pole. I use it as an extension of my arm. And if I'm going by a signal crossing in my town, I can activate the signal crossing by trying to hit it with the pole. That becomes a fun little game, but it's also functional. And I look at it as, if I can activate that signal crossing, it'll alert drivers that there are people using the trail regularly, and they may not stop for me, but I get them thinking about pedestrians and riders and bikes when they might not otherwise be doing so. And if I had to use my hand and I didn't have a pole, I wouldn't stop to do that. It's also the world's longest selfie stick, or one of them. and it's useful for, in my case, I mount an action camera on the end, and it gives me reach that I could never get with a traditional, smaller selfie stick. And I'm going to be carrying the pole anyway, so it serves multiple purposes, which is always great. If you're going to be carrying something on a longer distance while you're riding, why not have more than one purpose for it? The other thing that's kind of silly, you can use the pole to prop up a longboard for a portrait shot in front of a trail or some other landscape. And I use that from time to time. It's just something, again, that you already have it with you. Why not put it to use? In the big picture, I think adding a skate pole can be a new challenge. So let's say you've been riding for a long time, you're getting really good at pushing, maybe pumping as well, and you sort of hit a plateau, or maybe it gets a little stale, and you are up for a new challenge. I think a skate pole is a perfect thing to add to the mix, and mix things up a little bit so your routine doesn't become stale. And there are plenty of examples of excellent athletes. Look at Andy Andrus, kind of mastering the ultra skate at the push discipline, and then picking up skate poling and challenging himself in a new way. And I've not talked to him about that specifically, but I think he's probably someone that was up for a new challenge, and I think we can all take something from that. This next one may be a little controversial, but I would say, thinking of safety, a famous president once said, and I may be paraphrasing a little bit here, skate softly and carry a big skate pole. You will go far. And I'm not entirely sure that the skate pole adds to your safety, but it's a little bit different enough that a would-be attacker might think twice about picking you. One, you're on a board, and you can go a little bit faster than somebody who's on their feet, and you have an extension, as I mentioned before, an extension of your arm. And I don't think, it's not my mindset to think too much about safety, but I know a lot of people do when they're out riding, and I think it's something we should acknowledge. And maybe you would never need to put the pole to use, but it does give you a chance to sort of increase the space between you and somebody else if you had to in a pinch. And the same goes for animals and dogs and things, though I'd hate to think of having to use that against an animal. But food for thought. And finally, and probably the most important one I say for last, and that is fun. It's fun riding a longboard or skateboard with a long pole and propelling yourself with your arms. It's just still fairly unique. I mean, certainly people have been doing it for a long time, but most average passers-by have never seen anyone on a longboard with a skate pole. So they're always going to ask, what is it? You become an ambassador for the sport whether you like it or not, and maybe that's a bit of a con, but the truth is you're going to be stopped quite a bit, and people are going to ask you about what the pole is and what you're doing with it, and it can be fun to kind of talk to people about that. It can also be a little bit annoying if you're just trying to ride along and not attract attention to yourself. So definitely don't try the skate pole if you don't want to draw any extra attention to yourself, because you will. I mean, even very disaffected teenagers, when I pass them when they're walking home from school, they they'll turn and kind of look, and it's something that people are not used to seeing. And then if you throw like a really long deck in the mix and you start to pump as well, that looks really weird to people. And I think first of all, I think you can ride any board at all that you already have and add a skate pole to the mix. You don't need a specific skate poling deck. Although if you were to get one, a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, almost everyone, when they ride, at some point will plant the pole directly in front of the front wheel. I've done it. I think most of the people I talk to have done it. Typically, you do it when you're paying the least amount of attention, and maybe after you've gotten a little more proficient at it and you kind of let your guard down a little bit. So that's awful. Please be careful. Don't do what I've done because it hurts. Now, if you have a deck that's a top mount and it has a nice round front that covers the wheels, that's a bit safer. It gives you a fighting chance that the pole will deflect a little bit off the front of the board before getting locked into the wheel, or instead of getting locked into the wheel. So that's something to consider. I would definitely be more careful with a bracket deck that has a fully exposed front, although bracket decks or platform decks are great fun with the skate pole once you feel confident. But please be careful with that. And if you had any questions you wanted to ask, please do in the comments. I'd love to field them. If I've forgotten anything obvious about why skate poling is fun to try, please comment on that as well. Get out there and skate, and please consider adding a skate pole to your skating regimen.